board meeting. We start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Lucy has a flag for us. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve the agenda with a modification that we move item 12 up to item 6 so that Corey doesn't have to stay for the whole meeting.
So move that be approved as amended.
Yes, thank you. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Any other comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 We have time for public comment.
We were also going to table the original item 6.
Well, we could do that when we get there too.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
And we're going to time the public comment 3 minutes, please.
Right. Ken, do we have any public comment?
Yep, we currently have one caller. Caller, if you wish to speak, please dial *9. Nothing as of yet.
All right. The next item is the approval of the minutes of August 26th. They were sent out today. They have about, I don't know, 10 pages of comments that were all submitted.
Bob, your sound disappeared, but if you finished, I'll move approval of the minutes.
I'll second.
Anybody hear me?
Time to change devices, Bob.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Thank you, Victor.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
The next item is the next board meeting is on October 14th, 2020. And item 12, I'm on twice now.
I think your new device looks like it might be better, Bob.
Yeah, I'm switching over.
That's Zoom. Deja vu all over again.
Yeah.
Again.
All right, item number 6 is, item A is new business, vote on flexibilities to teacher administrator evaluation plans 2021. Corey, I think.
Thank you, Bob. I first want to start by saying this was day 4 of our hybrid model. And I want to thank the teachers, support staff, administrators, tech staff, custodial staff, and food services for a smooth opening. I just want to mention a few things because this has been such an enormous undertaking for everyone. And the first day of school, the opening was pretty much flawless. I have to say, you know, the teachers and students were so happy to return. I happened to be at Memorial that day, but I know the other central office administrators were in other buildings. And at each building, the principals reported that it just went really well for the first day opening. We have a full remote team of teachers in grades K through 8, and people have shifted their responsibilities. We have our literacy and math coaches, a library media specialist, our enrichment teacher, our science specialist, along with 3 classroom teachers who are doing just a remarkable job in preparing these students during remote learning. It has been absolutely amazing. Our support from our instructional technology team has been nothing short of outstanding. Not only did they provide professional development for our teachers and ongoing support and troubleshooting, but they also provided professional development to our parents and are there for our parents as well. Our teachers have been providing, their in-person learning as well as distance learning, and they have been meeting and collaborating, and the teamwork has been outstanding. Everybody has been there to support one another. And I want to give a shout out to all the teachers and all the support staff who have done just such a remarkable job. Their flexibility, their collaboration, everyone's working so hard. And a shout out to the parents, because we honestly could not do this without you. This is truly a partnership in our learning and in our teaching and working with your students. And really, the principals have really appreciated all the positive feedback from the parents and the positive remarks that they've received. And so we can't thank the parents enough. And truly, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Dr. Serino. Thank you so much for your leadership and your support through this reopening. It's just been incredible undertaking, and Kim, all the work that you've done as well. I can't say enough about our central office team, Jen Keene, who's not on this call, but what a team we have. And thank you so much for your leadership, Dr. Serino. In addition, before I just get into the evaluations, just quickly, I wanted to just mention to the board that we've started with Win Wednesdays. And what this is basically is what I need Wednesdays. And so we're working with ACES. ACES developed this program, which is a professional development program for certified and non-certified staff. And it's essentially a differentiated approach to professional development. And so every Wednesday, we're providing this for our teachers, whether it's optional. They may or may not have time for it because they're in meetings all day long, but we're providing them the experience. And I just thought it was important to mention that as well. And that will go on all year long. So I'll get into the evaluations now. Our teacher and our administrator evaluation. The Commissioner of Education released a one-time flexibilities within the guidelines, excuse me, for the 2017 Educator Evaluation in Connecticut General Statute Section 151B. I sent you both of those documents. You should have those. Excuse me. And these flexibilities are in place of the 2021 school year. It's for the 2021 school year only. The board has received a draft copy of both the teacher certified and evaluation requirements along with the administrators. The main differences between what I'm proposing as a draft, and this has already been approved by PDEC, so we have to have it approved by PDEC and the Board of Education. So I ran this by PDEC. They thought it was fine. They approved it, bringing it to the board. The main differences with the teacher evaluation flexibilities and the administrative flexibilities are such. There are no summative ratings this year for teachers or administrators. So in the past, and it's just for 1 year, so exemplary, proficient, developing below standard, that just won't happen this year. However, we still want to evaluate our staff, and we as administrators want to be evaluated. So what we're doing instead is we're focusing on more summative evaluation, formative evaluations, where we're going in and we want to do informals with our teachers. So very quick 20-minute observations. And so we're proposing informals as opposed to formals. We're still going to do reviews of practice. In addition to that, there are goals or their student learning outcomes will be focused on social and emotional learning for students, agreed upon academic goals, and student engagement, knowing that we're not going to use standardized testing achievement scores. We could use, scores that are more formative, but not the standardized testing scores. And for our administrators, the differences would be that we'll still, the superintendent will still do site visits, but we will be focused on the reopening of schools, supporting the health and safety and social and emotional well-being of staff and students, supporting remote and distance teaching, and ensuring equity for the most vulnerable students and families. So those are the differences between what we've done in the past. In the past, we have done more formal evaluations, and what they're proposing is more informal this year. And the SLOs, obviously, the student learning outcomes in the past were always focused on achievement scores and data. And because we don't have that, the standardized data, that is not a focus this year. So we're using data, but it's not going to be standardized data. And so I'm asking the board, I know that you have both copies that was sent to you. I'm asking the board to approve the flexibilities for both the teacher and the administrative evaluation this year. Are there any questions?
Anybody want to make a motion to do that vote?
Yes, I'll move that we approve the, you want them at the same time? The
Please.
teacher and administrator evaluation plan as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other comment?
Corey, I just wanted to ask if the teachers will have advance notice of the informal evaluations, or is it a walk-in?
We can do both. So we can give them an advance notice, or we could just walk in. And I would say a combination of both would be appropriate.
Any other comments? If not, do I have all those in favor of the vote on the flexibility for teacher and administrator evaluation plans for 2020, 2021? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Thank you very much, Corey.
All right, you're welcome. Have a great evening.
All right, thank you.
You too.
The next item under new business is the 2021 committee assignments. I just put this on here for two reasons. One is that we have two new members of our well-being committee, and they are student members, and they are Nora O'Connell and Gage Rovelli. And thank you to those two students. They're both juniors, so they'll be on the well-being committee for 2 years. And so they'll be working with Maura as we go forward with the well-being committee. And those are recommended by both Brian and Beth. The other reason is if anybody want to change their assignments. Anybody want to change any assignments from the committees they're on? The committee roster was sent out with your meeting notes.
Do we know what time the student achievement meetings are going to be?
No, we haven't set any. Well, I think they are set in from last year, right, Kath?
You're muted, Kath.
Let me just pull it up in my calendar. I think it's the 23rd. It's on for 4 o'clock, Missy. But you know what? If we're still doing remote meetings, I think we could move the time and just do.
I mean, in general, like I'm gonna have to call in unless it's after 5:36, like all year, like forever, which I'm fine with as long as people are okay with that. Because we also have policy the same day.
And I'm not sure we're going to have any new policies by the 23rd. I don't know, Norm, what do you think? I don't think we're going to have another policy by the 23rd. So maybe we could just put student achievement in at 6.
I think that's fine. I don't think there's any, unless something catches fire. I don't think we need a policy meeting.
Lucy and Victor, that's okay.
Fine. It's fine with me.
Fine with me.
I think that's going to be a pretty chunky meeting because we're really going to want to review what's happening in terms of the hybrid model, some of the considerations for if we were to move out of hybrid. Also, we just got Addendum 12 that talks about like really specifics in the hybrid model. So, you know, it'll definitely be an hour, if not an hour and a half. So, Missy, could you start at 5:30? Do you think that night?
I'll have to call in. I'll be driving home from dance, so I can call in and then I can jump on the computer when I'm home. But as long as there's a phone number, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
All right, if anybody wants to change committees, let me know, and because they're just assignments, I can just change it out. But if you want to think about being on a different committee, let me know. All right, the other one is the Finance Committee appointments. We had the chair, the Board of Education gets 4 appointments to this committee. Christine is on it, and the other 3 members are Phil Auger, David Booth, and Nima Patel. Both Nima and David have asked to resign, and Phil has asked that he would stay on if he was chair. And I think it's more appropriate to have a board member as chair of the committee, and Christine has agreed to do that. So we may have Phil may stay on, and I will request, and if you need, and if anybody else, I need some candidates who would be interested in serving on that committee. It generally meets, you know, probably 3 times a year, mostly before our budget. But so if you have anybody in mind that you think might be interested, please let me know. But I wanted to thank Nima and David for working on that for the last couple of years, and really helpful to have them involved, and really thank them for all their work that they participated in. Any other questions on this? Christine? No?
No.
Again, if
You're
anybody,
welcome, everybody. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Christine.
Thank you for taking over as chair. And I will write to Phil and see if he wants to stay on. If not, we'll need, we can have up to 3 more appointments. So if you have anybody in mind that wants to serve on the Finance Committee, let us know. Either myself or Christine, okay? Thank you. The next item is item number 7, which is the planning and response team update, which we're going to postpone until the next meeting. And number 8 is the athletics update. Kath?
Sure, Bob. Thanks so much. I know I had forwarded to Bob on Friday the 4th an update from CIAC, and had asked him to send that along to the board. But just quickly, DPH is said in a statement on the 3rd that they were unlikely to support any higher risk activities in the fall term unless there were some modifications made. And quoting, they said, "We would also recommend that CIAC consult with your sports medicine committee before implementing significant changes to how high school sports are played in our state. so that any potential unintended consequences of those changes including increased risk of injury can be fully vetted prior to the implementation. CIAC believes with volleyball that that having the volleyball players wearing masks during practice and potentially during games would mitigate the risk that was expressed by DPH, and DPH at this point has not indicated any disagreement with that at this time. And I think you may have seen this, that CIAC is now in alignment with DPH's recommendation about football, stating without DPH's support, CIAC cannot move forward with a full contact season, as it would place superintendents and boards of education in the impossible position of acting against the recommendation of a state agency. CIAC, in alignment with DPH guidelines, will now work with its dedicated athletic directors and football coaches to provide football players with the best low to moderate risk experiences possible. So at this time, we're simply engaged in basically conditioning. So our sports teams began their practices either on Saturday, September 5th, or Tuesday, the 8th, which was just yesterday. Our teams are following the guidelines of having cohorts of 10 for the duration of the preseason period, which will end on September 20th. And during this time, I think you may remember that the time period that our teams are practicing are limited to 60-minute sessions. Social distancing has been strongly supported during all the practice sessions, and full team practices and contact drills will not begin until supported by the recommendations from the State Department of Public Health. All of the activities would be defined as practice, and therefore attendance is to be expected. Equipment is being cleaned after each cohort has concluded, and this is per our reopening plan. And equipment distributions, helmets and shoulder pads, has not occurred at this time, and there is no timeline at this time to do so. What I would like to do, Ken, I think if I'm able to share my screen, I just want to quickly acknowledge the work of Todd Petronio, our athletic director, and just share with you, just briefly go through the slideshow that he shared with athletes recently, just to show you the comprehensive nature of the overview that he's given to all our parents and athletes. And I think based on the discussion with the Board of Education and our feelings about how important it is that we're extraordinarily careful in following all our protocols, that Todd has done an outstanding job in supporting that. Okay, right here. So I'm just going to quickly go through this so that you are, you're able to see this. Oh, let me make this up. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Okay, and we'll get out of this. Here, move you over here, Bob. Okay. And you know, clearly just an overview of the fall sports information, the sports cohort schedule, you know, with our alphabetical split, the schedule, the location of the practices, the very detailed information, including the fact that students have to be using their self-screening, which is, as those of you who are parents know, that we require the self-screening to be done, the self-screening checklist to be done for all staff and students before the start of the school day. And our athletes are also required to do that. You can see at the bottom of the screen what
your screen's not sharing anymore.
Oh. Okay, sorry about that. Let me see. Sorry, guys. Huh. All right, let's see. Not sure how I got out of that. Did it start to share, Ken?
It's starting to again now.
Okay. All right, and let me, you know what, I think I was trying to minimize this and I may have, all right, are you able to see now? Yes. Right, Ken?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. All right. As you can see, the guidelines that we have for school are the guidelines that we have on our field as well in terms of facial coverings and masks. I will be sure that that Todd knows that our policy that is likely to be adopted tonight will be discontinuing the use of gaiters, which I think many of our athletes are using at this time. The overview of the fact that we're not going to be using our locker rooms, the use of hand sanitizers, just what bathrooms are available to our athletes. Obviously, we're not using any kind of water refill stations or not sharing any kind of water filling. Again, you know, just very detailed information on dismissal, information on our athletic training and our trainer and how to get in touch with Janine Grabowski, who is our new trainer. Information on spectators in terms of parents not being able to attend practice and remaining in their vehicles if they choose to remain at the practice just because it's so short. Anyway, and you can see that Todd has included some of the masks that we have around all of our buildings. So just as reminders to our athletes. So that's our update on sports. I feel like the concerns that the Board of Ed shared have been taken into consideration, and I feel very confident that our athletic director, our coaches, and our student are really aware of what the protocols are in order to keep kids engaged, but also to keep them safe. And that's it for me, Bob.
That's very comprehensive, Kathy. Thank you. Are the other schools in the state following the CIAC, saying, do they have to, or do they have a choice?
Well, you know, people have a choice. I think if you were watching the news at all last night or reading the news this morning, Middletown Public Schools decided to discontinue football. And I believe that their discussion last night at their board meeting began with a proposal to discontinue all sports. And then after, I think, close to 70 minutes of public comment, it was only football that was discontinued. So different districts are doing different things, but CIAC has changed their recommendations for football at this point. That are more in line with DPH.
Yeah. Yes, right.
But school districts could choose to not participate in sports at all or participate only in certain sports.
There's supposed to be there has been a rally up at the state legislature about there were parents, coaches, and I forget who else, students, about football. They're rallying because they want football back in. So that was just actually held today.
There's some people who are very
And they're
angry.
not socially distanced at all when they're doing that.
They're angry and in some cases kind of aggressive in terms of what they're saying in their attempt to support football. Yeah. But yes, really.
I said I asked about the other schools following suit because with what the CIA, the final, what's come out from the CIAC, because if some of the schools play and some of them don't, again, it puts the kids in an uneven spot. If it's off for everybody, or it's on. It's too bad. I just hope it comes together.
Lucy, and I could be completely wrong about this. Just looking around on Labor Day weekend, I think that there were people who thought that the virus disappeared on boats and beaches and barbecues. And, we may see an uptick in a few weeks that's going to coincide with, moving into, more intense practices. So I think we just have to keep an eye on it.
But right now, our resolution is consistent with what is going on through the health department and CIAC.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else on athletics? I obviously, if you look back, got a lot of comments on it. I did speak to two media outlets last week as well. Okay, the next item is committee reports. The first is policy. Norm? Norm, are you still there?
Yep, I got it. Yep.
Okay.
No, I got this new computer and the buttons are all different. So anyway, we have the first item on the board agenda is regarding the sexual abuse policy that I do not have in front of me, that we talked about once before. I believe we had a first read on it, the child sexual abuse and assault response policy and reporting. And I believe we've already had a first read, so I think we are prepared to vote, are we not? I don't have it in my notes that the policy committee brought it forward, but I know they were in approval of it. So
yeah, I think we are ready to vote.
I think we are too. And I'll move that we adopt the I can hardly read it. The child sexual abuse and assault regulations, assault response rather, policy and reporting. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Do I have
I'll
a second?
Second.
Richard, second. Any other comments on it? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Norm, the second one.
And the second one, we had some conversation this evening. We had a policy committee meeting prior to this on the use of face coverings in school. This is the policy that you all received earlier that came from Shipman and Goodwin. It seems to read better than the one we had from CABE. I don't mean to minimize CABE's reporting system, but the policy committee was more in line with the Shipman and Goodwin policy. There were two optional sentences that we took a look at. The policy itself was fine, but Shipman and Goodwin supplied us with two other options. One of them, and of course, I have totally lost that. Kath, can you bring that up?
Do you want me to bring the policy up?
Could you bring that up?
Sure.
Thank you. Option one was in the first paragraph, and it was to add an appropriate face covering shall not include rather neck gaiters, bandanas, or exhalation valve masks. And the committee was pretty much in favor of adopting the optional piece simply because the conventional wisdom is telling us that bandanas and neck gaiters are not effective. But also part of this agreement was to set a date on it, to lay it on our students and our parents all at once is probably not a great idea. So we want to add to that this portion of the policy will actually go in effect 2 weeks from today, which is the 24th.
23rd.
Is that right? Well, anyway, 2 weeks from today. Further down the line on this, in this policy is the option, the second option that I'm sure you have read. We were pretty much very happy with it, and we certainly endorse it. And so as far as the policy is concerned, we're bringing this forward to you tonight. Time is of the essence on this, and I believe, and the committee also believes, that it's important that we vote on this tonight, hopefully with approval, to get it on the books so we can, as we leave the starting gate of the school year, that we can get all of our students and our staff as well on board with the appropriate kind of mask to use. So I'm going to move that we adopt the policy with the two options that were listed, as well as adding the end date following the first option sentence.
I'll second that motion.
Any other comment?
I just have a question. When you talk about options, those are pieces that are going to be added to, right?
That's correct.
Inserted,
Yes.
right in
Yeah,
there. Okay.
They're bolded so we can see them, but when the policy is approved, they will be unbolded and they'll be part of it.
And they're just part of it. Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
Any other comments? All in favor of the new mask policy, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Thank you. They have passed. Thank you, Norm. Next item is,
Well, let's, if we could talk about the regulation as well. We typically don't, there's a regulation that's attached to that, and we typically don't have to vote on it. It's really the purview of the superintendent as our chief executive officer. She writes it and uses that to enforce the policy. However, we did like the regulation, and the policy committee is asking that we vote in approval and not approval. We vote to endorse the regulation as presented. So I'll make the motion that the full board endorse the attached regulation of the mask policy as presented by Shipman and Goodwin.
I'll second that motion.
are there any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a comment that as you look through both the policy and the regulation, you'll see how it's specifically stipulates during athletics that masks will be worn as per the direction of the local health official. Our current health official is following DPH guidelines, but in so adopting this policy, we are now saying that we're going to follow what our local health official is requiring. And I think that's perfectly acceptable because they do, they're out of this Plainville Southington Health District and they follow the DPH guidelines, which is in keeping with the resolution we passed earlier. So I'm comfortable with that.
Any other comments? All right, if not, I have a motion. We have a motion to endorse the protocols and regulation under the mass policy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? Thank you.
And thank you, full board, for your support in endorsing and approving those policies. Thank you.
Next item is the playground committee update. Bob or Missy?
I don't have an update, so we haven't had a meeting. I don't know if Bob has any updates on the courts or not, Bob.
Bob, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Missy, at the prior to the policy meeting, you expressed some views on what's happening at John Lyman. I think it'd be nice to share that with the entire board.
Sorry, yes. So yeah, I have gotten nothing but positive feedback from the kids on the playground. I don't even, what did my daughter say? It's amazing or something? She's in bed now. I don't know. But yeah, they're so excited, and they don't all get to go on it every day, but Mr. Ford is making sure that they rotate so everyone gets a turn. And yeah, it came out pretty awesome. You should drive by when you have a chance when school's not in session.
Okay. Yeah, and since the last meeting, Kim could probably speak to where we stand with the actual purchase orders on both the courts and the memorial playground equipment. So Kim, if you wouldn't mind.
Purchase orders have been submitted for both memorial and for the playground and for the courts. So memorial playground equipment's on order, and the courts should be just a matter of getting the, working out the schedule to get out there and start on the court. So they're work in progress.
Great.
Sorry.
And the picture that's being shared is that is the memorial school.
No, that's John Lyman.
That's John Lyman. Yes, I was going to say that didn't look like memorial to me. I'm like, no, that's the John Lyman. Yeah. So that's the finished product. Boy, that is beautiful, isn't it?
All right, any other comments, Bob?
No, that's it. I just, again, thank you to the board and for all your support, and of course, everybody that worked on the committees and the town of Middlefield for their support on the courts as well. So I just wanted to thank everybody for that. Other than that, thank you.
Yeah, I want to express my great thanks to the full committee and Missy and Bob for leading it. It was a very odd time to do this, and you were able to get it through despite the pandemic, despite everything else, and got it underway and completed at John Lyman and soon to be completed at Memorial. It's a great job for you and your whole committee, and thank you so much for all that work.
You're here.
The next is communications. As I said, a lot of the communications from the last meeting were on athletics and football, and they've been included in the minutes from the 26th. And the only other comment I have is, there's two other things. One, we have a note from Kristen Prout who wanted to talk about the imbalance in some of the cohorts, and I think Kat's going to talk about that later in her report. And the other one is, we've been asked, others have asked if we can go to live meetings in the near future. There's a couple of reasons we can't. Mostly, it's very difficult on our video and on the our technology to get both in place in live, and also some folks on Zoom, and then also with the public comment on it. So Ken hasn't been able to figure that out yet, but maybe over the next few months we can do it. Plus, we also don't want to have a lot of extra people in the buildings. So keeping the board members out of the buildings is also helpful, not adding any more activity to the buildings than we need. So we're still working on that, but live meetings is off for a while. All right. Any other communications?
Yes, I had
I
communication.
just want to give a shout out to Dr. Sereno and her team for the opening day video. I did send her a note, but I just wanted to say it publicly that what an extraordinary job that she did. I'm actually so incredibly jealous of her because of her ability to speak extemporaneously. But anyway, it was a wonderful video. I enjoyed watching it, and I want to express my thanks to her for doing that, as well as her brief but poignant remarks on the first day. Those two struck a chord with me, as you know, that I have a different job in a different school district, and it's nice that everybody around the state is happy, and I'm happy that Kathy presented that to us. So my thanks to you for doing that.
Lucy, you got a comment?
Yeah, I had some firsthand communication from my grandchildren about the first day of school. And both of them were very excited. You know, I think they're just so elated to be back again. And of course, I got the blow by blow of all the details about everything at the high school, all the protocols and everything else. And it was just, oh, this and that, and, you know, just as though it's part of an ordinary day. And even my grandson was excited to be back, and that says a lot. So they were happy, they were very pleased. And so was I, just to hear all the details and how they just seamlessly went together. So thank you, Kathy, and everybody.
It was a tremendous amount of work to get there. Any other comments, communications? Thank you very much. Kath, it's time for your report, superintendent's report.
Sure, Bob. Thanks so much. What I'd like to do is just start with just something that I put out to staff. We do a central office update every other Wednesday, so that we just give just current information from me, from Kim, HR, curriculum, special education, and our technology team. And I put something out this afternoon just to say to folks, hey, can you let me know what's working, you know, in our first 4 days. And so this went out around 3:30 today. And I'm just going to share with you what the staff said. And I'm going to tell you that, you know, probably an hour after it went out, I jumped back into the document just to see, like, gosh, has anybody written anything? And I am telling you, I was moved to tears when I began to read it. I literally am choked up talking about it, which I think you'll see why. A couple reasons. It was like, oh my gosh, the almost 180 days of work that has gone into a successful reopening. To hear from teachers and other staff members the positives, and certainly we're always working on lots of areas to make people feel comfortable and safe and get students in more often, but this is such a credit to our staff. So let me share this with you, and I'll see. I recently did a little acknowledgement to my administrative team and played a little bit of background music from Supertramp. So we'll see if I can make that happen again. Let's see.
All right. Here we go again. Give a little bit, give a little bit. So send a smile and show you can. I'll give a little bit. Give a little bit for you. So give a little bit. Give a little bit of your time to me. See the man with the lonely eyes. Oh, take his hand. You'll be surprised.
So I hope that you enjoyed that and you got a little bit of a sense of the kind of enthusiasm that people have come back with, and that we have a staff that has the ability amidst, you know, I have to say, like every moment of every day, I think all of us are thinking about kind of what we need to do, being engaged with students, but the backdrop of being sure that we're following protocols, and always having that anticipation of what if, how will we respond to, you know, myriad possibilities. And that, I think in that document, you can see the heart of our staff, our people who are able to see the good in all things. And that is, you know, a credit to District 13. So the other thing that I would like to share with you, just kind of by way of the updated addendums that we have gotten from the State Department of Education, also the things that we're working on. So let me share that with you now briefly. Okay, here we go. Isn't it funny that we started talking about these updates back in March, but let's see, I'll try to get to where we are now. Okay, here's our reopening update for September 9th. And we'll present from here. Okay. So just a couple pictures, table for one at Cafe Coginchog, which is serving as our cafeteria. Tables are 6 feet apart, and I can tell you this is not every high school student's dream for socializing with one another. Just a little bit of an example of a classroom. You can see the dots on the floor, which measure 6 feet apart. A classroom at Brewster with desks 6 feet apart. Just have a couple of pictures here for you to have a look at this. Another classroom, and a couple of pictures at Lyman School as well. So we had Addendum 9, which came out the day after we had our board meeting on the 26th to talk about recommendations for contact tracing in school. So I just would like to bring you to the second page of this document that talks about how to respond to the potential scenarios. If you have, you'll see here 1 confirmed case in the school, 2 or more confirmed cases in the same classroom, 2 or more cases within a 14-day period that are linked to an exposure outside of the school. In the consideration column, what they're always asking us to do is to really look at our other mitigating measures that we have in place here, which all the mitigating measures that have been recommended and discussed with you are being practiced consistently in District 13. So students and staff who are determined to be in close contact to a case from school are excluded from school for 14 days. Again, close contact is being considered within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more with or without a mask. Our initial conversations, which I have shared with you from our health director, is that a case in a classroom would result in an entire class being quarantined for 14 days and not being able to return to school for 14 days. This also talks about the scenario that includes multiple cases being identified, or if we had a community outbreak that could result in an entire cohort being out of school for the quarantine period of 14 days, or the potential of closing school for 14 days. If you're reading the news or talking to your friends, you're seeing that there really, at this point, isn't a unified response. Naugatuck High School, I believe, dismissed students early one day because of an identified case in their school, and different schools are handling this in a different way. But we have a protocol set up by which we would be immediately in touch with our health director to determine what our next steps would be. Addendum 10 discusses school discipline. In particular, this addendum really is encouraging school districts to not disproportionately suspend or expel students who may have a difficult time adhering to some of the new regulations, and to really be paying close attention to the social emotional impact that all of this has had on students, including just kind of acclimating themselves to a whole new social strata by being back in school. Addendum 11 gives a very comprehensive overview of the use of masks and face coverings. And, you know, as DPH has said, every single Tuesday morning when we have our Health and Safety Tuesdays, they refer to the use of masks as the whole ball game. And I can say that I believe that our school district has done a great job in terms of wearing masks, but I do believe our next real focus areas is to really make sure that staff and students alike are wearing masks that fit them properly, that fit snugly to their face, that completely cover the nose and mouth at all times, and that the mask does not move when people are talking. I will share this with you just because I'd like to share the chart where they review the different types. They do talk about all the different types of masks that people are wearing, but there is a chart that I think gives us a quick overview in terms of their feelings or their recommendations about the various types of masks. And, you know, obviously the N95s are not recommended for school use. The KN95s recommended for use in schools for older children. The surgical and procedure style masks, which are those that we have available for staff and students, cloth masks that most people are wearing. And they're kind of feeling a little bit I'm going to say a little bit inconclusive about neck gaiters and bandanas in terms of their effectiveness because of the thin material. So as you know, based on the comment from the board, that part of our policy will be not to allow neck gaiters and bandanas, and then the exhalation valve masks are not recommended for schools. So this guidance was very helpful for all of us. And just the guidance that we've gotten is that we communicate our expectations. I think we've done a very comprehensive job of that. I think we need to continue that teaching, modeling, and reinforcing the universal use of face coverings, clear guidelines for mask breaks. I will say that, people coming back together after being separated for such a long time, there's I think, a very human social need for proximity. So this is something that we are definitely working on, not so much when we're taking mask breaks, but just in general. The development of policy and protocols, I think we've landed the plane on the policy tonight. And then you haven't been in our buildings because you haven't been in the buildings, but there are visual reminders and messaging. One of the things I did want to say is that in the beginning of when we first got the reopening guidelines from the state, there was a provision by which staff could teach behind a plexiglass barrier without a mask on. And I'm not talking about just the face shields, but there are big barriers that we were told that staff could take their mask off. If they were 6 feet away from students, they could, we actually had ordered these kind of standing, rolling kind of sheets of plexiglass. And then I think it was the day after we ordered them is when the guidance came out that that's no longer an approved method, that what our advice is that your masks are the requirement is that your mask is on at all times, unless there's a situation where staff or a student's mouth really needs to be seen. And in that case, being behind a barrier is acceptable. Addendum 12, which just came out on the first day of school, just really talks about remote learning, what that should look like. They give quite a few resources for us, what hybrid learning would look like, which are remote learning. We do have some remote learners right now, and what that would look like now, and if we are in a fully remote situation. But Corey and I will review this with you when we meet in our student achievement meeting on the 23rd. I did want to talk a little bit about the cohorts, and just as we're talking about that here, as you know, one of our priorities was to make sure that we were keeping siblings together. So when I'll show you what this looks like in when we made the cohorts, and we split the alphabet A through M and N through Z. Now, as you know, when we first decided with area schools to do that, and we obviously looked at our student population. We didn't know at the time how many students would choose, or how many parents would choose remote, and how many parents would choose to have their students be homeschooled. So as you can see at Brewster, we're pretty close in terms of the A cohort and the B. Oops, sorry about that. A cohort and B cohort. And you can also see in the far right column how many students are participating in remote learning. So we have a pretty even balance here, and you'll see the total a difference of 8 students, 89, 81, with 34 total students at Brewster participating in the remote group. At Lyman, you'll also see that we have a pretty close cohort sizes there. A couple places you'll see a bigger difference, with the difference at Lyman a little bit more pronounced with 93 and 78. And then at Memorial, you'll see that in particular, you see one class that has a pretty sizable difference there. But overall, pretty close there. What we looked at the alphabet, and we were talking about whether we should do an A through L. Lyman School has virtually, no students whose last name begins with L. So, that was kind of one of the considerations. We have started some students who have significant support in special education, began the school year attending 4 days. We are starting to do, to kind of transition some other students who receive support through a 504 plan or through special education, transitioning those students to a 4-day-a-week schedule as well. We do see the bigger imbalance at the middle and the high school. And in some cases, that's a pretty significant difference. But in our attempt to kind of keep families going to school on the same day with a focus on the elementary school, one of the kind of unintended results was a high school that has a little bit more of an imbalance. So we will, we're going to continue to look at that in the next week. And we've had some parents who on the day before school decided to either send their students to school or to have them learn remotely. And so there are some variables that are impacting the difference there. We may really start to look at, especially if in the next 3 weeks, we think that we'll start transitioning to more in-person learning at the elementary school and kind of persist with the hybrid model in the middle and the high school. We may be looking at trying to have some voluntary shifts to even out the cohorts and see if we can have some people who would be willing to shift to cohort B. Just one other thing I did want to mention to you at this point, that we have had fewer than 5 incidences of either a staff or a student who needed to be quarantined just by following our COVID protocols, not because of any identified cases, but because of either a travel advisory or because of an exposure. And as I mentioned in the policy committee, we have fewer than 5 students who at this point have requested a mask exemption. And that's my update, Bob.
So nothing much is happening then.
Now that we're not meeting every week, I'm going to really have to make sure I keep my Board of Ed binder up to date. Yes, since the 26th, we've had 5 more addendums because I think we were, no, I think 4 more. Oh, we actually have 13. We just got addendum 13 today, which is very exciting, but nothing that will stop the show. Guidance and considerations for school nutrition programs. So we'll give you an update on that.
Can you send us those addendums?
I sure can. I will send you all of them in one email.
And can you send us the cohort thing that you just showed us?
You know what I'll do? I want to make sure that it's absolutely aligned with the data that Meg has, and then I'll share that with you.
And then are there numbers that you can share for the middle school and high school?
Yes, I have total numbers for the middle school and high school, and I didn't really separate those by classroom. Right now, the difference at Strong is 219 in A through M, 127 N through Z, and the high school cohort A is 258 and cohort B was 129. And again, a lot of other considerations that went into that, but really we use that trying to keep families together as our guideline. So we'll continue to look at that, the middle and high school.
By the way, remote in high school, is that about the same 12-15% as in the lower grades?
You know what, Bob, I'm going to have to go back to that.
Okay.
That document, and then I'll let you know when Kim's talking. I'll go back into that.
That's okay. I was just, it just seems like that, it's a pretty consistent level of remote learners in the elementary grades. So. Thank you. Any other comments for Kath? If not, thank you very much. It's very helpful, and I think the issue that I have on cohorts is pretty much answered, and we can move ahead and try to see if there's any adjustments later on. Next is Kim's report on Director of Finance.
Yes, thank you. With just 2 months into the new school year, MTA has not had much activity going on. We are 5% expended, and we have not received any revenue yet. General fund for the month of July and August, we are at 12% expended, and we've received 17% of our revenue. Some significant expenditures during the month of August would be our first teacher's payroll occurred in August, as well as the HSA deposits for the teaching staff. Building repairs and maintenance that were done over the summer. The Brewster blinds that were in the budget have been done. We had done some duct cleaning and HVAC repairs, some specifically related to COVID reasons, and some just periodic repairs. And then, of course, the yearly cleanings and inspections that take place over the summer, the water, the septic, fire suppression. We did some tree trimming and some paving repairs. So that all occurred pretty much in the months of July and August. Just a few status updates. I had on my list to talk about Memorial Playscape and the tennis court conversions. We covered that. The high school basketball courts and the tennis courts at the high school were resurfaced over the summer. We did receive funds from our insurance. I had mentioned at a previous board meeting that we had fire panel damage from was a lightning strike. We did receive insurance reimbursement less our $1,000 deductible, as well as trees, damage from trees, again, a $1,000 deductible, but we received the insurance claim for that. So collectively, that was about $7,000. Bus loads have been small. Some buses are operating with 1 student. Some are at the highest at 24, I think is the highest route at Strong and Coggin-Chug. Those are the rosters. That doesn't necessarily mean that's, who's riding. We've got bus monitors on buses that have 12 and above scheduled to ride that bus, but some of those buses haven't had 12 students. Could be because it's the first few days that the parents are dropping them off. Could be that we need to look at adjusting some of those numbers. So with that, at the end of this week, on Friday, DETCO is going to provide me with actual ridership. And we can see if we need to adjust certain routes, consolidate routes, obviously keeping social distancing at the forefront. The 71 passenger bus can social distance for 14 kids. So clearly, if we've got some runs that we can combine, we have the ability to do that. The buses are could be running a little early because they have fewer stops. So we have a couple issues with that. The buses arrived early. They are cleaning between tiers. So the thought was that, the time they took cleaning would, sort of absorb some of that early run time. But we're working all that out. Not sure who's on what day and who's riding. So it takes a couple weeks to really get it down. Keeping with the DACO theme, we received a letter from DACO informing their districts that they serve that they would like to be paid for their contract in whole, even if we continue in hybrid or we go to an unscheduled school closure. Right now, our contract is specific with them that we only pay for days that they actually service by runs. Executive order last year, you'll remember, well, it wasn't last year, it was just in the spring, but that, we had paid out 80% agreed upon rate with the bus company. So I don't know if there's going to be another executive order. I know the thought with the executive orders is if the bus companies go out of business, who's going to transport the children? And we need to be reopen again on a moment's notice. So that will I'm just putting that on your radar that may be something we need to look at in the future. For the month of September, we are continuing to pay for the Wednesday service simply because they're deep cleaning and also IDS is open 5 days and they transport 5 days. And Vinyl is having a little bit of a different schedule than we do. So we do need some drivers on Wednesdays for Vinyl. So we are doing that, but I have told them that, should we cross over into October, we may need to have another discussion. Total COVID PPE from March 16th to date, we've spent $167,000. 67,000 of that was occurred in the 1920 year, paid for with 1920 funds, and 100,000 in the current year. We recently, if you've seen, put tents at 4 of the 5 schools. So that number does include tents as well. The state has allotted funds for our district for PPE, a total of $150,000. So most of what we've spent, we will get reimbursed for. We have additional COVID expenses outside of the PPE, 51,000 for curriculum for distance learning. This is in the 1920 year. We had 5,000 additional graduation and 42,000 in technology. 43,000 of that 98,000 total will be reimbursed to us through the ESSER grant through the CARES Act. The remaining pieces we can bill FEMA for. The state has also issued the $160 million more to school districts, which I talked about at the previous board meeting on the 26th. And so we are utilizing that for cleaning safety personnel, pays for our sanitizers and any custodial overtime. Bus monitors are being paid for out of that. Again, I mentioned the 150 PPE. And then there's transportation of 191,000. If we needed to do additional runs, we needed to run some small vans. I know Dr. Serino has said that she has heard conversation from area superintendents that thought that the formula wasn't the best and maybe thinking of, can we transfer some of that transportation money to, different areas. So that is a possibility. I wanted to discuss food service for this evening. Just at the end of August 31st, the USDA and the state of Connecticut extended the waiver to serve free lunch and breakfast, free meals to all students under the age of 18. It's called the Seamless Summer Option. The waiver expires December 31st of this year or until funding runs out. Funding for that is the reimbursable amount we get for each meal. So for each breakfast, we get $1.89, and for each lunch we serve, we get $3.51. Mark is doing a great job using our government commodities that all districts are, entitled to on various levels, and keeping the cost of the meals in line with that. So we're hopeful that we don't experience any more significant losses in the food service by allowing that to continue to December 31st. I'm looking for the board to give me guidance as to if that's your desire to continue that through December 31st. That's irregardless if we're hybrid, full in learning, or full distance learning. Again, the caveat is until funding runs out. So so many districts. And certainly I would expect potential for more students to participate, seeing that they are at school already, rather than having to go pick up the lunches when we were on distance learning. So we really could meet the funding level sooner than December 31st. We had anticipated, actually had an unanticipated loss in the food service of $134,000 for the year ended June 30th, 2020. We also experienced additional $2,000 loss when we extended the waiver for July and August. That was only $2,000 for both months, simply because we were not under the executive order to pay the staff that we were during the year. So we only staffed based on what was needed. So at this point, I think tonight I need to just address with the board what your direction would be for handling any of the loss through the food service department. I had talked about this a few months ago, that we would need to come to a decision if the board will fund the loss for the food service, or the food service would have to shoulder that burden. Personally, I think the food service simply cannot shoulder that large of a burden. And with FEMA reimbursement, that brings down the amount that we anticipate to need to be reimbursed to the food service to be about $36,000. So if FEMA reimburses us 75% of that loss, we're looking at a $36,000 supplies expense for the board to absorb that loss for the food service. Like I said earlier, I don't expect a significant loss for if we extend the waiver, simply because we are getting a reimbursement rate. Earlier in the year, we were already into March, a lot of government commodities had been used. So, and food was already purchased at, different prices throughout the year. So we were experiencing a higher cost per meal to prepare than Mark has been able to work out going forward. Let's see. Yeah, so those would be the two things I'm asking direction for, is, if we were to be able to transfer that $36,000 as an expenditure to the board for supplies, and also if it's the board's desire to continue the waiver until funding runs out, or December 31st, whichever comes earlier.
My position is we should cover that loss with other supplies. And, I think that it's important probably to keep the food service going until we run out of money, or December 31st. So I don't know, anybody else have any comments on that? Anybody?
I agree, Bob.
Yeah.
I agree with both of those propositions. To extend the free meals and to absorb the excess supply costs in the board's budget.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
I would agree as well.
That the anticipated surplus at year end was, I talked about this a couple of meetings ago too, was it a little bit higher, 106 higher than we had anticipated, because we had closed some purchase orders and we had less loss of revenue than we thought we could. So really with that, we were 106,000 over. So with a 36,000 transfer, we're still 70,000 more than we had anticipated for our surplus. And, still my recommendation for that, which is not for this evening, but just to get on your radar, would be to appropriate that for potential salaries for, the learning loss due to COVID.
Thank you. Any other comments? I would like to shout out just one comment is to Tyler Geary, who's been power washing the stadium bleachers. He volunteered. He was there at a soccer practice and thought they needed cleaning, and Tyler brought his own power washer and some Carson Stone, and it's been cleaning the bleachers for us. So he's done a great job in cleaning up the bleachers without us having to pay for it. So that was a great thing from Tyler Geary.
Do we need a resolution to accept that donation?
No, there's no cost to it. The Kim, that's great. I know that you're constantly working on this, both from remote and in the building. And thank you for all your efforts on this, keeping track of all this costs. It's going to be a tricky budget year, as for sure. Any other comments for Kim? If not, we have next item is public comment. Ken, do we have any public comment?
We do have one caller. Caller, if you wish to speak, dial *9 to raise your hand. No indicator.
All right. If not, we have time for a motion to adjourn.
Also move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Hi.
Good night, everybody.
Hi.
See you.
Good night.
Good night.